How do you think we can make it more acceptable as like a society to talk about these issues? Because it feels like people think they have to go about their issues alone, and like the sign of weakness if you portray that there's something going on. How do you think we can make that more acceptable?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, and I'm so glad you brought that up because the number one thing is you look at it as a weakness, but it's not a weakness, right? To actually share what you're going through is a strength, right? And everything that we're going through, we just don't share because we're embarrassed or we don't want to be looked at as the odd person. But you're not an odd person. You're actually the more courageous one, right? You think about the really true successful people who's making billions of dollars who still committing suicides, people who's super successful that's committing suicides, people who are been super successful and now their life is drugs and all these different things. We're leaving our communities to fend for themselves. Our job is to build communities. God built the community with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's a community. Well, we have to build that same community that we don't leave each other in those communities. Communities that I grew up back in the day, your next door neighbors used to beat your behind, right? If you weren't doing the right things, right? There was a standard in every neighborhood that you could not just walk around and throw trash on the freaking ground just because you feel like it. But now it's like there's no consciousness to what it means to take care of your communities or take care of the people in your community. And I truly I say this all the time. We are teaching everything about money and everything about AI and all this technology, and we've forgotten the human connection. We've forgotten what it means for a child to be held. We forgot what it means to have a brother that you can listen to and you can talk to and you can tell them your greatest pains. Like that model has been ripped away because now you go look for your dopamine hits on social media. Oh, let me see how many people like my videos. 90% of those people will never or could never help you. We need systems that can help. Community built systems. Easy copy paste. That's what sometimes baffles me because it's an easy copy paste model. That's why the locker room concept, I truly believe this, is one of the only concepts that can actually change our communities because we don't see race. We don't see if you're poor. We don't care. We just want to help. Yeah.
And then I believe this we're out of time here, so I guess just my last question is
Yeah.
at the end of the day, what's the one thing you want people to know about what you're trying to do? And if someone's listening to this going through their own issues, what's a message you have for them?
Yeah. I think the one message is you're never alone, right? Don't try to do life. Life was never designed to do it by yourself. Even when you get to the highest echelon of life, right? It's never designed. Steve Jobs, dying declaration on his bed. I've reached the pinnacle of what I can do in business. And now I realize in life I never lived, right? Because business was more important than family, right? The greatest investment that we can make is in family, and family is each other. And the greatest message that we have to figure out is evil never takes a break, and neither does good. But good people take a break from doing good. And we got to get back to work because our numbers and our world says we're not winning. We're losing and we're losing. We're having babies. We're burying babies. Babies supposed to be burying their parents. Yeah.
My first question is obviously we're here today because I know you were recently bestowed the Champion of Mentoring Award. I know Bill Russell also was honored at this event. I just want to know for you personally, what does it this honor from mentor mean to you personally? What was your reaction when you heard that Rob was this award was happening?
First of all, man, the first thing you think of is the impact of what God thinks about you every time that you help someone else. And I think just the moment that I got the call, um, because you're always working. And I never do anything for publicity or stardom or anything. I do it because it actually helps people. And to be on a stage with Shapiro and Bill Russell, to understand him as a legend, as a man, before he even went home. The conversations we shared once or twice. It's one of the highest honors I think anybody can notice of someone who has a heart to just help people. So I was actually blown away. It was probably one of the most rewarding things that I probably received, to be in that room with those type of people sharing those stories that you hear from Bill Russell's wife, widow and stuff. And so I think just that whole room, that whole aura around what does it mean to be recognized as a champion in the mentoring space is what I live to do. So it was one of the greatest honors I think I've received in a very, very long time. I've been speaking openly about my son's passing for the last 2 years since he's been gone. This was just another follow up in a way that I actually deal with it. Um, losing a losing a son, losing a child, you will never see life the same ever again. Nothing in life even matters at all. But when I have these type of opportunities, especially this type of conference, which was his mentoring, our kids, our kids need way more. They need fathers more than they need iPads. They need brothers more than they need iPhones, right? We think everybody's smart and everybody's brilliant because they can use a phone and they can communicate with cyberspace. But real life is God created us to need people. So for me, sharing my son's tragedy can hopefully one day slow down someone else's pain. When you think about the great ones, the Andy Reeds, the Tony Dunges, the Joe Theismanns, we join a very unique fraternity that no parent, father would want to be a part of, which is a parent that's lost a child. And talking to each one of them separately, it's an ongoing thing that I don't think a lot of people is paying attention to until you get the direct phone call. And so my Ray of Hope Foundation is all around the mental health aspect of life. Like, how do we get them actually help? Like, how can we connect like people before you get to 911? 911 can't help us, right? By the time that these decisions are made, right? These fatal decisions. And so, yeah, man. So one of the releases, my son used to always say, Dad, he used to always say, let's make today a great day. And so when I get up and speak now, or before I leave anywhere, I always want to make sure somebody else day is better than what mine may be or what theirs has been going on. And yeah, and so that's why it's become common now to me being open to speak about my pain, because I don't want to hold it, right? If you hold it, whew, tough, tough, tough. But if you share it, you can help many, many, many kids. My mission inside of Ray of Hope is to affect 1 billion people. How do you do that, right? We got to build the right ambassadors. We got to build the right locker rooms. We just got to build the right people. We have a lot of different crises in the world, but I believe the greatest crisis we have in this world is leadership. And our kids has been to left to fend for themselves. And so that's why I bring up my son's story.
And you mentioned about touching 1 billion minds. How is that something you want to go about achieving and using what you've learned for tragedy that you've experienced? How do you want to go about achieving that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the very unique fraternities that never sees opposite. We never see opposite, which is the locker room, right? The locker room, we don't see race, we don't see broke, we don't see none of that. What we see is togetherness. We see we see loyalty, we see commitment. And when you think about how many kids, I mean, the ones who actually pull this off, 1 out of 12, has a suicide plan. 1 out of 6 actually pulls this off. Gang life starts at 9 years old in certain places, and gang life in other places start at 10 years old and 15 years old. So our kids are getting younger and younger, and they're being pulled into these places, but they don't have a locker room, right? So social media is so volatile because there's no locker room. It's just a bunch of chaos and this one is saying this and this. But what makes sports such a unified movement is that when we walk in that locker room, we have one common goal. How do we win? And even when we don't win, how do we grow? Because a lot of times I learned more in my wins than my losses on what it meant to grow, right? And that's what I think with my foundation. My foundation is totally built around finding the right partners who want to build the right locker room and everybody do their job very well. You don't have to be the rock star. You don't have to do everything. But if you do your job very well, if you think about how many foundations that actually don't partner with other foundations, right? I want to be the catalyst. I want to be one of the people that push us as leaders to partner with other people who's doing very strategic things so that we can all understand we must help our children have a better future when we're gone. Yeah.
And you mentioned your Ray of Hope Foundation. I know how passionate you are about that. And now that you're kind of in line with mentor, your former teammate Rob Robertson, who's on their board, what's the goal you have in mind with your two sides coming together and making like almost like a pact right now?
Yeah, see, I think that's one thing that you think about gang life, right? Gang life provides a lot of different things, right? It provides protection, it provides, you know, money, it provides, food, all of these different things. And we have to create that same thing when you talk about a mentor and ray of hope. We have to create those locker rooms, those ambassadors that you can call, right? Later on down the road, there'll be an app that comes up and stuff where you can actually, by the time you call 911 and you have a mental health problem or you want to commit suicide, you're not choosing 911, right? You're choosing the pistol and you're choosing your way out. But if we can create these these ambassadors everywhere, right, in their communities, right? I can't go and have the same impact in Pittsburgh, but Ben Roethlisberger can, Jerome Bettis can, right? People like that, right? You go to the next one and you copy and paste that model to where you use influential capital, which we've not used influential capital in a very long time. I think the way that we should be using influential capital. And that's what it's all about. It's about how do you create these many communities that every time you leave, it's a copy and paste model. You're not showing up to say, hey, let's fix this riot, and then we're out. No, you're showing up to leave somebody that's in that community, that's from that community, to make sure that they can be an ear, they can be a voice, or they can be a comfort of some sort to help our children out with this next phase of life.